This week, the HPT invades the Chicagoland area at the Majestic Star Casino in Gary, Indiana. Over 570 players entered day one, creating a prize pool worth over $750,000. Now we're down to our final 9, and it is stacked with some of Chicago's best players. The coveted title of HPT champion, along with over $170,000, awaits the last player standing. The stacks are deep, the blinds are low, and the players are ready.
This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face, you with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game, talk trash all you want. To me it's all the same, you won't leave with much when you come in second place. I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gonna cry to your mama cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Hello and welcome to the HPT. This week we're coming to you from one of our heritage events, the Majestic Star Casino in Gary, Indiana, just outside of Chicago. I'm Fred Bevel. With me as always is poker professional Maria Ho, and this event marks our 14th time here at the Majestic Star since our second season way back in 2006. And one thing that has always been consistent when we come to the Chicagoland area is the prize pools are life-changing and the fields are one of the most competitive we see on the tour. 577 players started on day one, and now we are down to our Elite 9. As always, I expect an instant classic from the Majestic Star Casino, so buckle up for some great poker action. Here's what's on the line tonight. Over $171,000 up top for the last player standing. Everyone at this final table going home with at least $14,000.
And now let's take a look at the chip counts. Bob Chow is leading the way with just short of $5 million, and Daryl Roni is following not too far behind with just a little over $4.2 million.
Bottom stack, Michael Dice with just over $500,000. He's going to be looking to get a hand pretty quick. Blind starting off at this final table at $20,000 and $40,000 with a $5,000 chip ante. First up to bat is Morat, 7-9. Not gonna play it. Over to the one seat of Daryl. He quickly folds. This is Joe waking up with Ace King.
Joe has about 16 big blinds starting off this final table, so this is definitely a hand that he's prepared to go all in with. He's gonna just go ahead and raise it up to $105K and hope somebody takes the bait.
Action's folded around to Bob Chow. He's going to lay it down. Tell you a little bit more about Bob later. He's got an interesting story at this final table. We're now on to Vu Huang. He wakes up with Ace Jack. This could be trouble, Maria.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on the table dynamics leading up to this final table. If he feels that Joe is on the looser side, then he might be prepared to do what he just did, which is put Joe all in for his tournament life. But I think it's a little bit on the looser side. It's a little bit overly aggressive for me. I would probably just fold that hand.
Well, Joe makes the snap call as expected, and Vu finds himself in a tough spot. Luckily for Vu, Joe didn't have a whole lot of chips, as Maria pointed out, only 16 big blinds starting out the hand. Here comes the flop.
The flop is 7-9 King Rainbow, which just puts Joe further in the lead. Joe was already ahead with Ace King. Now he's paired his king. Vu's going to need some runner outs to eliminate Joe.
Vu hoping the turn helps.
8 or 10 would be interesting.
It does a little bit. A jack of clubs comes down.
Now Vu's looking for that other jack on the river in order to eliminate Joe in 9th place.
You can see Joe still a huge favorite in this hand.
Let's go ahead and see the river card, please.
And the 3 falls on the river, and that's going to do it. The double up complete for Joe. And you can't think of a better way to start up this final table than with a double up if you're sitting in Joe Wilson's seat.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you're going into a final table as one of the shorter stacks, you're hoping to pick up a hand fast and get action.
Everyone's folding, including Joe here in the 2 seat. Moving on to Mike. He's going to lay it down. This is David Goodfriend in the 4 seat. He's going to fold. Bob Chow started this final table as the chip leader, over $500,000 in tournament winnings, and he is going to open this pot, it looks like, with 4-5. And Maria, I think this is something we're going to have to get used to from Mr. Chow. He likes to play.
I like that Bob's going to take his chip lead and let that factor into how aggressive he's going to be. He's on the cutoff. He has 5-4 suited. That's definitely an open spot for me. And so he's going to make it 85K, except it looks like Vu has woken up with a huge hand here, kings in the small blind.
And he does announce a raise. Bob and Vu know each other pretty well at the poker table. Both play in the Chicagoland area together quite a bit.
Vu's going to make it 215,000 to go.
Call.
And wow, Bob is going to make kind of a loose peel here. I think he's hoping he's going to flop a huge hand, but I don't know, I would have liked to see him fold that hand pre-flop.
Flop comes 4, deuce, 6 with 2 clubs, so Bob does hit a pair. Way under Vu's pocket kings.
Bob also does have a gut shot to go with it, and if he thinks Vu doesn't have much, if he thinks Vu has ace king, ace queen, then he might try to get Vu off this hand right here, right now.
Well, Vu leads out on the flop for 335,000.
660.
And look at this. Bob Chow is going to min raise it. Makes it 670,000. And very quickly, Vu goes all in.
From Bob to 670.
So Maria, just like that, 4-5 suited is going to cost Bob almost $1 million in chips.
And I think this is the problem with his speculative call pre-flop is, what do you do when you have 5-4 suited and you just flop a pair with a gut shot? You don't flop a straight, you don't flop a flush, you're not flopping a huge hand, yet somehow you've managed to get involved in a massive pot, and he made it so that he can't fold to Vu's all-in re-raise, and now he's going to see that he is well behind in this hand.
300 and
Yeah, Bob pretty much pot committed himself by the min raise to 670.
5,000 more. 325 more.
325 more.
I call.
He can't fold, and he's going to see he ran into a monster with pocket kings, but Bob's not out of it yet. He's got outs.
Yeah, Bob's definitely got outs, but the problem I see here is that sometimes you make a loose call pre-flop and you get committed to a hand when you're not flopping what you're hoping to flop. So we'll see if Bob can get lucky on Vu here and knock him out.
Pocket kings. Turn card is another
The turn
spade.
is an ace of spades, giving Bob a lot more outs. He also has a flush draw now to go with his gut shot, and the river is not going to do it. It's a 6 of clubs, and Vu's going to double up here.
Hey, I just know where you are. I just know where you are. Sweat.
The action starting off fast, furious, and entertaining. More poker when we come back.
Welcome back to the HPT here from the Majestic Star Casino in Gary, Indiana. It's time to get back to final table action. We'll send things over to Freddie and Maria.
Thanks, James. And we could see there's a bit of a shift in the chip counts now that Bob has decided to get a little frisky with the 5-4 and double up Vu. Daryl Roni has become our chip leader, with Bob following close behind him, and actually Vu now is in the 3rd spot.
First 2 hands of this final table, we see a short stack double up, and we see the big stack double up another player. I don't suspect things are going to be slowing down anytime soon. Action on this hand starts with Mike. He's going to fold over to David. He folds back to Mr. Chow. 4-5, good enough to raise. Deuce 4, good enough to fold. And here we have Bruce Nee waking up with Big Slick.
He's going to make it 115,000 to go.
Bruce is a carpet salesman from Vernon Hills, Illinois, playing for a lot of money today. And Morat in the 9 seat wakes up with Mom and Dad, my favorite hand. He's going to make the call. Now we're over to the big blind of Joe.
He's probably smoking too.
Joe has pocket 7s, and he's going to go ahead and call as well.
Not a squeeze play from the big blind with a wired pair there.
No, and I think I'm okay with that play. I think he has enough chips to play post-flop, see a flop, and it looks like Bruce has out-flopped him here, though. The flop is deuce, king, jack with 2 clubs.
Bruce and Morat have top pair, both with really good kickers. This could get ugly for Morat.
320.
Bruce is going to lead out for 320,000.
Morat's going to go all in. I don't really see much else he could do with his hand, and Bruce is going to quickly call. And Morat's going to see that he's behind, and he will need a queen in order to double up. Otherwise, he'll be eliminated.
Flips over king of spades, queen of clubs.
The turn comes an 8, so it's only a queen for the 31-year-old ex-Special Forces soldier. Morat looking for a miracle on the river or his day will be over. The river is a 3 of clubs, not going to be enough for Morat, and we have lost our first player at this final table.
Considering Morat only had less than 15 big blinds at the start of the hand, I think I would have liked to see him move all in pre-flop. If he really wanted to play king-queen, I think that would have been the way to go, but instead he ended up being up against a better hand with ace-king and getting knocked out.
Ace-king makes another appearance at this final table, this time in the hands of Bob Chow, and he is, as expected, going to open to a raise to 115,000. Maria, blinds are 25, 50,000 right now. Is 115 an appropriate raise in your thoughts?
Yeah, I think 115 is just fine, and I think it'll be interesting the way that people will play against Bob now, seeing as they know he'll open with 5-4 suited, so maybe he's going to get a couple of loose calls.
Well, Thomas Doc Schrepfer wakes up with ace-jack. He is going to make the call. Goes by the name of Doc because, well, he's a doctor in a student center at a college in Urbana, Illinois.
And the flop is king, queen, 6, a couple of clubs. Bob is still ahead with ace-king, top pair, top kicker. Thomas, however, does have a gut shot. A 10 would give him Broadway.
For Doc's sake, I hope missing this flop gets him off this hand, but doesn't look like that's going to happen. Bob opens for 150. Thomas makes a quick call.
The turn is a 5 of hearts. Bob is still ahead. It's not the card that Thomas is looking for, and he came into this hand with about 20 big blinds, and this is where I see people making a lot of errors. I think they should be folding or raising all in pre-flop, and instead they get involved post-flop, and they're leaking chips, and at this point I think Thomas is going to have to fold.
I'm all in.
Unless he decides to make a play for the pot, and Bob beats him into the pot with a call, and Thomas is going to see the bad news that he's just drawing to a 10 now.
Thomas trying to push Bob Chow off the hand, but it's tough to get top pair, top kicker off the hand. And now Thomas is hoping for a miracle on the river, or we'll have back-to-back knockouts here.
The river is a queen of hearts. It's not going to do it. Bob is going to eliminate Thomas in 8th place.
Doc's going to have to go back to the student center in Urbana, Illinois, but he's going home with a good hunk of change, just under $19,000 for his run this week here at Majestic Star Casino. Congratulations to that gentleman.
7-handed play now as the blinds are 25, 50K with a 5K ante.
And action's going to start with Bruce Nee. He folds over to Vu.
Vu looks down at ace-9 of diamonds. He's looking like he's going to open, and I think he should open this hand.
110.
He makes it 110,000 to go.
Vu is a 34-year-old semi-retired entrepreneur. I'm not quite understanding that definition, semi-retired entrepreneur. I guess I am too. I don't own a business. Bob Chow now with queen 6 of spades against what might be his favorite opponent at this final table.
And Bob's going to go ahead and make the call.
It'll be round 4, round 5.
It looks like Bob definitely enjoys playing a lot of hands post-flop, so let's see how he's going to manage to win this one.
Flop comes deuce, king, jack with 2 spades, so Bob has a flush draw. Both players miss pairing up the flop.
And he's going to go ahead and lead into the pre-flop raiser here. And I hope that Vu can kind of smell something fishy going on. I don't think that when people flop huge hands, they normally lead into the pre-flop raiser. They're always expecting the pre-flop raiser to continuation bet, and then they would check raise. So I don't ever believe this line very often.
Well, Vu does raise Bob, makes it $315,000 to go, $205,000 for Bob to continue on in the hand, and he chooses not to.
And this is the problem with what Bob did here, is that he actually had some equity there with a flopped flush draw, and now he can't even see the next street because he decided to lead in to Vu and get raised.
More poker from Majestic Star Casino when we come back.
Welcome back to the HPT, coming to you from Gary, Indiana, and the Majestic Star Casinos. It's anybody's game.
With 7 players remaining, Bob Chow has retaken the top spot with $4.7 million. Daryl is still following close behind with Vu in 3rd place, and our short stack is going to be Michael Dice with just under 9 big blinds.
Blinds continuing on at this final table at 25 and 50,000 with a 5,000 chip ante. Playing 7-handed now. We've lost 2 players very quickly at this final table. Action folding around now to the 3 seed of Mike Dice, and look at this. He is going to go all in.
And this is a perfectly standard all-in shove with his 9 big blind stack with deuces here. Let's see if anybody has a hand that they could call him with. And Bob looks like he wakes up with queens in the small blind, and I think he's only taking some time because he wants to see if he could somehow get the big blind trapped into this. He just goes ahead and makes the call, but the big blind doesn't have anything, and he's going to fold, and Mike's going to see the bad news here.
You're right, my friend. Deuces against pocket queens. And I think we've seen a deuce fold in this hand. That's why the percentages show only 11% for Michael. So he'll be trying to hit the case deuce, or he will be the next elimination from this final table.
The flop is jack 6 forward, 2 hearts. No help to Mike, except he could get running hearts as he's the only one with a heart in his hand. Otherwise, he's still looking for that deuce.
And the turn is the queen of hearts. The drama picks up a bit in this hand, Maria.
Well, that is quite an interesting card. It gives Michael more of a sweat now. He has some flush outs, but not the jack of hearts, as that would give Bob a full house. The deuce is also out of the equation.
Jack or deuce. Jack or deuce.
Big sweat going to the river for Michael's tournament life, and that is going to do it for Mike Dice, making his first career final table, and this event only being his second career cash. The 25-year-old logistics salesman from Chicago is going to be at future HPT events, I'm sure. Action continues at this final table, now 6-handed. Blinds continuing at 25 and 50,000 with a 5K ante. Action starts with Joe. And action is going to be folded to David Goodfriend. David is a 51-year-old game manager from Chicago, Illinois. Has a vast collection of NHL jerseys.
And he wakes up here with a huge hand. Kings is a huge hand in his spot right now. He's going to just raise to 115K, hoping to reel somebody in, maybe Bob.
Call. No, I'm gonna.
I just want food.
Bob was the most likely player to be reeled in, but he's gonna lay it down. Now we move over to Bruce. He folds. Now over to Voodoo Voo. Queen 7 of clubs. Not gonna play it.
And now the big blind, Daryl, is gonna call with 5-4 off. I think that's a very loose defend from the big blind, especially against the stack size that David has. I don't like that at all. The flop is Jack 8-3 rainbow. Daryl's completely missed this flop. He checks it over to David.
135.
David making the expected continuation bet to 135,000. And Daryl isn't going anywhere.
And this is exactly the reason why I don't like defending there, is now Daryl has gotten himself into this pot unnecessarily. He has no idea what David has, but Daryl has nothing, and just trying to get David off a hand. And now Daryl's going to have to sheepishly fold, but he wasted a lot of chips in the process.
Nice hand.
Well, at least give him credit for having a plan. I mean, he defended, then he tried to check raise.
But against the 20 big blind stack size, it's not a good plan.
But it was a plan.
Gambler.
Ill-advised, ill-advised.
Point well made again, my friend. Maria Ho, professional poker player. If you're new to the HPT, you are not new to Maria Ho, an accomplished player with many career cashes. How many final tables last summer at the World Series? 3? I'm bragging for you.
You are, because I only had 1.
Well, it's 3 now. David, another pair in his hand. This time it's pocket 8s. He's going to raise again to 115, just like he did with the Kings.
Bob looks down at pocket 6s, and I think he might get a little bit aggressive with this hand. He probably feels like, oh, David just raised the hand before. Maybe his hand isn't as strong this time, but he is just going to call, show a little bit of restraint there.
Now action moves over to Vu. Jack 3, not even close to good enough. Now we're back over to Joe Wilson. And he is going to make the call from the big blind with ace 9.
Yeah, we have 3 players. Let's go ahead and see the flop, please.
And the flop is deuce 4-9 rainbow, putting Joe in the lead here with a pair of nines and an ace kicker, but David is going to actually take the line of continuation betting here, and as he should. There's only one overcard to his pocket pair. Joe checked it over to him. There's no reason for him to not follow it up with a bet.
And the same could be said for Bob's hand. Only one overcard here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bob's thinking about calling.
185 the wager by 185, ladies and gentlemen. Over to Bob.
There's not too much out there that is bad for Bob's hand, and this is where, oh, he's gonna make a laydown and surprise us all. And now we're gonna see if Joe wants to check raise here or slow play it a little bit, but he is gonna check raise all in. And David might feel like he has to make the call now that he's bet. The thing is it signifies a big portion of David's chips to make the call here, and I don't know if he's willing to risk most of his stacks.
David will choose wisely in folding and give Joe credit for the 9. And much needed chips go into Joe's short stack. The action at Majestic Star is as hot as anticipated. We'll be back right after this. Thanks for coming back to the HPT. As the players get eliminated, the pressure goes up. Over $170,000 going to one of these players. Let's get back to the final table.
As we can see, Bob Chow is still leading this final table. Daryl and Vu follow behind him. And with the elimination of Michael Dice, David is now our short stack with 1.1 million.
Blinds continuing on at 25 and 50,000 with a 5K ante. Been a fun final table so far. Lots of action. And in this hand, we will start with Joe Wilson. He has got ace-9 offsuit. Joe is an environmental contractor from Cary, Illinois. Just under $300,000 in career earnings.
Joe makes it $130,000. He has a little under 26 big blinds, so I like that he's opening up his raising range a little bit, hoping to just get folds and pick up the blinds. But David here with also a somewhat short stack is just going to call him with Jack-10 offsuit, and I think that's a bit too loose with his stack size.
Action folds around. Onto the flop we go. It is Queen 3-5 rainbow. No help to either player. Joe still ahead with ace high.
And here's where being the pre-flop aggressor is so important when you have two opponents with similar stack sizes, because now Joe's going to c-bet, and presumably David's just going to fold because he doesn't have the aggression in this hand.
Those chips that he's staging doesn't look like he's folding. He is going to make the call.
And I'm not sure what David is doing. It looks like he's floating here, but it is a little bit of a weird float with two undercards to the top card on the flop. But now Joe does check it over to David, who has actually hit a pair of jacks and decides to check behind, which leads me to believe that he wasn't floating on the flop, because if he was, he would go ahead and bet this turn. But looks like the river's a queen of clubs, and it's going to induce Joe to try to win this pot by betting here, thinking that David doesn't have anything, but David quickly calls, and this hand was just played somewhat strangely, but it looks like David is going to take it down.
I thought he was floating there too. Of course, the definition of floating somebody is you call them on the flop to make a play on the turn, and the door was wide open for David to make a play after Joe checked, but he decided to check it down and let the cards do the speaking for him. I'm no poker pro, Maria, but I gotta agree with you. That was a little strange how that one played out. Action's gonna start here with David.
And David looks down at pocket queens, so I'm assuming he's gonna come in for a raise now.
And that's exactly what he does. He's keeping his raises consistent, making it $115,000 to go. We've seen him do that with pocket kings, pocket eights, and now pocket queens. Bob is gonna fold. Over to Bruce Nee. Bruce is going to make the call with pocket fives. And Vu wakes up with an interesting hand.
He looks down at ace king, and I assume that he's going to 3-bet here.
Raise.
Raise has been announced by who?
335.
He announces the raise to $335,000.
Raise. Re-raise, rather.
Now, I would expect David to just go ahead and go all in here pre-flop to get rid of Bruce.
Yeah, and Bruce is going to get away from his fives, and then we're going to probably just have a race here.
Action folded now back to David with the pocket queens.
This is just kind of a cooler type spot here. We are seven-handed, and you know, these flips are going to have to happen.
As predicted, he goes all in. The pocket fives get out of the way, and Vu makes the call.
Classic.
We have a classic race on our hands. Maria, ace king versus the pocket queens.
Over here, Vu shows the ace of hearts, king of clubs. Three hearts. Goodfriend trying to double up with his queen.
With the king of hearts? With the king of hearts work? Okay.
David hoping to see low cards on the board here, so his queens survive, and he doubles up. A little over $3.5 million in chips up for grabs here.
The flop is 9, 10, 10, 2 spades. Vu doesn't improve. David's queens are still in the lead.
I only have one heart there. One queen, jack heart does nothing. God, Bob, you play this game so well.
The turn is the ace of spades, and now Vu is in a dominant position to knock out David.
The lead in the hand is Vu with his aces. He's in the lead. Let's go ahead and see the river card, please.
And the river is the 8 of clubs, and unfortunately David's queens are not going to hold up, and he will become our 6th place finisher.
Going home in 6th place with a little under $30,000 for a good weekend of poker. Congratulations, my friend. A lot of us have nicknames in this life. Mine, unfortunately, cannot be repeated on national television, but one name is legendary, and that is Texas Dolly. In A Poker Life featuring Doyle Brunson, here is the legend himself telling us he got the nickname Texas Dolly, brought to us by our friends at Ace Play Poker.
When I first started playing, I was known as the best player, you know, and so they were writing articles about me, and particularly the Las Vegas Sun. And Jimmy the Greek was the sports editor. And I said, Jimmy, I don't want all this publicity. Could you please not use my name? And he says, okay, so I'll just call you Texas Doyle. And I said, okay, that's fine. And so somehow it got translated into Texas Dolly. And that became my nickname. And it just stuck with me through the years.
Doyle may not like the nickname Texas Dolly, but hey, Doyle, it could be worse. More poker from the Majestic Star Casinos when we come back. You're going to be glad you stuck around because the action is getting hot at this final table. Let's get back to it.
Action at this final table has definitely not slowed down one bit. Bob Chow still holding on to that top spot with just over $5 million. Our short stack is Joe Wilson now with just under $500,000, which is the equivalent of 8 big blinds.
8 big blinds means you got to make a move quick. Blinds are moving up. They are now 30 and 60,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. Play on this hand. We'll start with Joe Wilson.
And 5-handed, King 9, 8 big blinds. I like this shove.
And Bob has capped his cards, which means he's probably going to get action here.
Unfortunately, Bob has him dominated with ace 9, and he makes the call.
Bruce is going to fold. We're now over to Vu. Jack deuce into the muck quickly for Vu. And now over to the 1 seat of Daryl. Ace 9, that's tough to get away from 5-handed here, but with the action, one of them being an all-in, it's kind of easy to fold.
All right, let's flip them over.
Oh my God.
In the 2 seats.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
All the players react to what's been tabled here. King 9 going against Ace 9, as Maria pointed out. King 9 in a heap of trouble, both sharing the 9, but outkicked by the Ace.
That's a guaranteed King's coming off.
Let's go ahead and see the flop.
Joe hoping to find a king on the board here.
The flop is 4 deuce 10, a couple of hearts. Joe does have the 9 of hearts, so he will be looking for that king or running hearts in order to double up here. Turn is a 6 of clubs, and now Joe is down to a king and only a king on the river, or else he will be eliminated in 5th place.
For Joe to double up and keep his king and hearts alive. Let's go ahead and see the river card.
Crystal ball says so.
River is an ace of hearts, and that's going to do it for Joe. He's going to be our 5th place finisher. He just couldn't hang on with that short stack any longer.
Yeah.
Getting a nice payday of over $36,000. And Maria, with that elimination, we're officially short-handed at this final table. I suspect the action is going to get even more hot as we move on to a champion. Blinds continuing here at 30 and 60,000 with a 10K. Bruce Nee first up to bat. He's going to fold.
Definitely wrong.
And all the players
Definitely
left
wrong.
have over 30 big blinds. I'm
It
expecting
was
to
actually
see them
sports
open
betting
up
at 6
their
years
game a
old.
little bit. I feel like a
And,
few of the players here have been playing a little bit on the tighter side. I would like to see them get a little more aggressive now.
Well, how about this for aggressive? Daryl opens with 7-5 to 155,000. Action now on Bob. He peeled back Jack Queen.
You haven't seen two cards you don't like.
13 card in the card.
And Bob's going to go ahead and call. We have a battle of the blinds going on here.
I think you saw every.
Daryl is a Chief Information Officer in Naperville. That's just a cool title. He's like the Chief of Information. And he's an officer, so you have to salute him when you see him. Flop comes 9-9 King with 2 spades.
Neither player connected with this flop, but Daryl does have the pre-flop aggression going for him, so let's just see if that's going to be enough to take down this pot.
Officer Daryl continuation bets to $250,000 in chips.
Bob sees that he has a gut shot though, and even though the board is paired, I think he's trying to go for that, or he might be trying to take away the pot on a later street. He doesn't really need to do that once he hits the 10 though, and Daryl does slow down now and check it over to Bob.
Well, Daryl checked the turn over to Bob, and now Bob's going to try to get some value out of this straight by betting $350,000. I don't know, Maria, you got 7 high on a paired board, all over cards. This might be a good time to fold.
But instead, Daryl decides to check raise to $800,000. I did not see that coming. I thought he was ready to give up on the pot. And honestly, that run out so far is just not a good board for Daryl to bluff here. I think it hits a lot of Bob's calling range pre-flop. The river is the jack of diamonds, and let's see if Daryl is going to continue to dig himself even deeper into this hole. Pot's at a little under $2.5 million, and I think he might be giving up now, but you never know. Bob checks behind.
You got a 9.
And Daryl's just going to have to muck his hand.
I don't have a 9. I had.
Queen of clubs, Jack of hearts.
Daryl put Bob on a 9, but much better than that. He had the straight, and Bob is going to scoop almost $2.5 million in chips. Poker, poker, poker. More of it from Majestic Star Casino when we come back. Thanks for coming back to the HPT. The players in Chicagoland know how to move the chips. I'm having a hard time keeping up. Let's get back to the final table.
With just 4 players remaining, we are that much closer to crowning our next HPT champion. Bob Chow looks to be in a good spot as he is the chip leader here with almost $7 million. Bruce Nee and Daryl Roni on the bottom of the chip counts, but they definitely still have enough big blinds to play with.
Blinds continuing at this final table, 30 and 60,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. Action will start with Vu. He's got King 9 offsuit, and it looks like he is going to play it. Now, Maria, 4-handed as opposed to 9-hand, and King 9 has a little more value here, doesn't it?
The easiest way to look at it when you're trying to determine starting hand selection for short-handed play is to just back up the positions. So, for instance, he's raising King 9 here, not from under the gun, but from the cutoff.
Understand. Good way to look at that. Okay. Action is now on Bob, and once again, Ace King makes another appearance at this final table.
375.
And Bob here is in the small blind, and I'm expecting him to 3-bet here, and he does to $375,000.
King Deuce in the hands of Bruce Nee. He quickly folds. Now we're back to Vu. Bob and Vu have locked horns a few times already at this final table, and they know each other. They have a lot of history together at the poker table outside of the HPT. Very familiar with each other's style and how they like to play. And that 3-bet's going to get King 9 off the hand.
Yeah.
I think that's a good disciplined fold from Vu. I think he was contemplating making a move on Bob, seeing as how he's a little bit looser pre-flop, but I think he wanted to wait for a better spot.
Bruce Nee is first up to bat. He's going to fold over to Vu. Looks like 10 Queen. Now, Maria, one thing I've noticed from these players at this final table thus far is not a lot of limping. Anybody who's first to act has been raising.
Especially when it's shorthanded, I like seeing people come in with a raise. I don't really think there's a lot of merit to limping at this point. I think if you want to play a hand, you should come in being the aggressor.
Daryl folds. Bob makes the call with pocket sixes. Here comes the flop.
The flop is King 4-9 Rainbow.
9 of clubs, King 4-9.
Bob has the best of it right now with pocket sixes, but the 9 and the King have to be a little bit scary. He's going to check it over to Vu.
And Vu also does have a gut shot, and he does have the lead in this hand, but he decides to check behind. See another card. The turn is the deuce of diamonds, and Bob looks like he's going to just bet here, and I fear that because Vu gave up his pre-flop aggression on the flop, he may just end up folding this hand, and Bob's going to take it down.
Bob firing out 105,000.
105.
Would this be considered a probe bet, Maria? Just trying to see where those sixes might be right now, or?
Yeah, I think Bob feels that if Vu checked behind, then he probably didn't connect with the flop, and I think Bob's just trying to protect his hand a little bit and hope that Vu folds, but I guess Vu's gonna call and hope to hit one of his outs on the river.
Oh, let's go into the river card.
Well, here comes the river. It is the Jack of Hearts, and that is exactly what the doctor ordered for Vu. Bob checks over to Vu. Let's see if he tries to get some value out of his straight.
The problem here is that Vu's going to go for the value bet, but I don't think Bob has enough to call. I think he's going to put Vu at least on a 9 possibly from checking back the flop and calling the turn. So I don't think Bob sees this as a bluff unless he puts Vu on a busted diamond draw, which is one of the few combinations that would call a turn bet that misses the river. But no, Bob doesn't feel like being a hero today.
Bob wisely folds, and Vu is going to take down a good-sized pot here. You can see Vu has some friends in the audience as they chant his name after winning. Blind still at 30 and 60,000 with a 10,000 chip ante.
And as you could see, I feel like Bob and Vu are dictating a lot of the action. I think I want to see Bruce and Daryl open up their game just a little bit more to keep up with the two.
Well, Daryl has slowed down a lot since losing that big pot just a few moments ago at this final table. It's got to feel like a little island out there on the one seat. Everyone's on this side of the table. Ace-Queen is what Bruce knee peels back here. Bruce probably the tightest player at this final table right now.
Yeah, and he's going to go ahead and 3-bet to 280,000 with Ace-Queen. And I feel like this is why it's kind of easy to play against people who have a tighter image. Is, you know, Bob might peel King-3 against someone else, but against Bruce, he's probably just going to end up folding to his 3-bet.
Well, Vu is going to fold. Now we're over to Bob again with the King-3 suited.
I just think that Bruce is so tight and has such a tight table image that I don't see Bob doing anything else but folding here.
Last time we saw Bruce knee at an HPT final table was at Hooters, way back in season 3 on the HPT.
For when we get back for the next round, anyway, I can request a new setup. The decks, they feel there's a lot of...
And maybe this is where Bob is going to try to exploit Bruce's tight image and put him to the test a little bit, thinking that he is only going to risk his tournament life and his stack with the top of his range. But no, Bob just opts to call instead.
Bob may be planning a little post-flop aggression if he sees a safe board here, which comes 8-6-3 rainbow. That might be enough for Bob to try to bluff here.
Well, Bob's flop bottom pair, and Bruce does give up the betting lead, as you could see. And now it just leaves the door wide open for Bob to take this pot away from him.
All in.
Oh,
look at that.
but now I think Bruce is making me eat my words a little bit, and I find it very difficult if I were Bob to call here with bottom pair, because I would not have thought that Bruce would be capable of making this kind of play.
Well, he is repping a big wired pair is what he's doing here. An all-in check raise after being the pre-flop raiser. How big of a cape would Bob need to make this kind of a hero call?
Yeah, I think Bob was just posturing there because Bruce's image is that of which you just can't make that call with bottom pair there.
Well, I think the whole table would be surprised to see Bruce need check raise all in with just ace high. We'll be right back with more poker from this week's final table right after this. Welcome back to the Majestic Star Casinos here in Gary, Indiana with Maria Ho. I'm Fred Bevel. Here is the latest chip count.
Continuing on with four-handed play, Bob Chow, even with that slight misstep there, still has the chip lead with just under $6.5 million. Vu Huang has just over $4 million, and Bruce Nee and Daryl Roni have similar stacks with about 47 big blinds each.
Everybody with plenty of room to play here at this final table as the blinds continue at 30 and 60,000 with a 10K ante.
Splurge a little bit.
That is the hand of Daryl. He is going to quickly fold. Over to Bob Chow now. Mentioned earlier, Bob has over 500,000 in tournament winnings under his belt here. Very experienced player, well known in the Chicagoland area.
Bob's going to open this button here with 9-6 of spades. He makes it 130,000 to go.
And Bruce with ace-10 is going to flat call. And another ace appears in Vu's hand with ace-deuce.
And I don't think that this is the right hand to squeeze with. Ace-deuce suited is a pretty good hand. You want to see a flop. It plays pretty well multi-way, and he will just call.
Here comes the flop. It is King Jack 4 with 2 spades. Bruce quickly checks. Over to Vu now.
Well, Vu really hasn't connected with this flop at all, so I assume he's going to check it over to Bob. Bob, though, has flopped a flush draw, so we can expect to see him continuation bet here.
Bob's going to take a second look at his card. Yep, 2 spades there. And here comes the semi-bluff in the form of 225,000.
And it looks like Bruce wants to call here with his gut shot straight draw. I can't imagine that Bruce necessarily believes his ace high is good. He may just want to try to draw out on Bob.
Vu is going to step out of the way here. So Bruce hoping for a queen or any kind of a connecting card here. Although it comes a 4 of diamonds, unfortunately.
And Bruce is going to check it again over to Bob.
Bob might want to just go ahead and take a free river card here. He does. He checks behind.
And the river is the deuce of spades, and Bob is going to make his flush, but it's Bruce who looks like he wants to try to bet and win this pot on a bluff. However, it's just bad timing as Bob did get there. And Bob quickly calls.
And Bruce is going to have to table a whole lot of nothing as Bob tables his flush. Bruce trying to bet the scare card here, but unfortunately that scare card was the money card for Bob, and he is going to lose a lot of chips in that hand.
6, bro.
Continuing on now, Bob still stacking the chips from that last hand. It's got to feel good, Maria, when you're at a tournament table shorthanded and you just have such a mountain of chips in front of you.
Yeah, I think Bob's style is pretty well suited for this final table. I don't think a lot of people have been giving him a lot of trouble. Nobody's really 3-betting him, even though he's opening a lot. So I think he's just going to continue to play this style until somebody wants to take a stand.
Well, this time Bob is playing pocket 10s. Vu, his nemesis, if you will, a friendly nemesis, wakes up with King Jack.
And I think that a good strategy to employ against Bob is just to call a lot of his opens. I think that Bob has shown that he likes the continuation bet. I think if you take a whole check calling method against Bob, you could actually extract a lot of chips for your value hands.
First hand we see Daryl in since we've been 4-handed. And here's the flop.
5 deuce jack, couple of hearts. Vu has flopped top pair with a king kicker. Bob still has pocket 10s.
Vu is going to fire. He bets 260,000. Actually moves over to Daryl with just 10 high. No pair, no draw.
Daryl's going to fold. And there's no reason, if I were Bob, to do anything but call. You definitely can't really fold to the donk lead, but you also don't want to raise here because you don't want to raise yourself off of the hand.
And just to define donk lead, it's when someone leads into the pre-flop raiser.
The turn is the 9 of clubs, and I think Vu's just thinking, I'm gonna check it. This is where I think you need to be extracting value from someone like Bob. He doesn't like to fold, so you have to keep betting.
Now a queen falls on the river. That could be kind of a scary card here. It doesn't help Bob. He's still sitting on a pair of 10s, but it's a pretty coordinated board.
Yeah, and I think this is where Vu's check on the turn might confuse Bob, and he might just end up calling him on the river, although the queen did kill Vu's action a little bit because now there's another overcard to Bob's 10s on the board. And Bob's going to see his chip lead dwindle a bit here as a 1.7 million chip pot goes Vu's way.
What an exciting first half to this final table. It has been, as promised, an instant classic, just like Majestic Star and Gary, Indiana always delivers. Next time we'll return with 4 players left battling it out for the championship and over $170,000 to the last player standing. Now, do you think you have what it takes to sit under the bright lights in the national spotlight of the HPT? Well, check out hptpoker.com and find an event near you. For Maria Ho and James Larson, I'm Fred Bevel. We'll see you next time on the HPT.